All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Culture Calls Dialing into the Future, where we discuss everything on organizational culture. Our guest today is Mr. Rajiv Kuchhal. No introductions needed, but I will still, have a short brief on who he is. Rajiv is an active angel investor and mentors multiple startups in the social enterprise and technology space. He's an advisor and board member of many such companies. He's also a general partner at the Xfinity Fund. Rajiv has spent more than 2 decades in the IT BPO industry, mainly with Infosys Group. He led Infosys' foray into the telecom and product engineering services space in the early 90s, and he became one of the youngest business heads and management council members at Infosys. He led Infosys' foray into the BPO as a founding team member of Progeon, which is now Infosys BPO. He was Chief Operating Officer of OnMobile and was part of the senior management team instrumental in helping OnMobile scale as an organization and consolidate its market leadership. And finally, Rajiv is a graduate of IIT Delhi. An absolute pleasure to have you on our show, Mr. Rajiv. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Suman. Thanks for having me here.
Fantastic. I think, before I did, no introductions needed, but, for our audience, could you tell us a bit about yourself and what you're currently pursuing right now and your current role?
So currently, like you mentioned, I'm not in any corporate life per se, but I'm working with multiple startups, both in the tech space and in the social enterprise space. And I also work with a couple of not-for-profit organizations. So that has been my focus, but mainly helping them grow as an organization. And what does it take when they move from one level to another, what they need to do as an organization.
Right. That is fantastic. You have had such a vast array of experience. Be it in the IT sector or be it in the startup sector, and you've had so many instances where you can understand that work culture, is evolving, and you can understand how culture plays such an important role in determining how exactly business is happening. And we all know that in the last couple of years, the work culture has taken a hit, or in some cases has accelerated a lot. So, how do you see work culture evolving, especially in this hybrid and remote work culture, which is looking to stay for a long time? How do you see work culture evolving in these times?
So I think COVID has thrown interesting dynamics. So people were talking about flexible working and stuff like that. But I will say that it was more on the paper than in the practice.
Mhm.
Yes, they were there and more as an exception. COVID kind of changed it, and a lot of organizations took a while to understand what it means. Of course, they moved very quickly to Zoom, and everybody got onto that was the easy part. Also, there was a sense of crisis, which made everybody just put their head down and get on with the work which they are doing. But it has thrown up an interesting opportunity where, on one hand, you can tap into the talent pool you could not tap into earlier because they can work from anywhere. The women who had a tough time leaving the kids can now work from home and stuff like that. But then, how do you build an organization culture? How do you build that sense of belonging? Is something which companies are struggling with. But I'm pretty optimistic we will all come up with the solutions. I think what will happen is that offices will become more of a place where people get together for social purposes rather than work purposes. So the work will also happen, but they come primarily to office for social purposes. So a lot of, uh, you know, it's interesting. Somebody was saying that earlier you will have going out that for team building. Now people will come in for team building.
Mm.
So that is, I see certainly happening. Of course, this is relevant more for organizations which can work in these sectors, which are normally large organizations, whether in the IT space or financial services. Um, and things like that. Uh, Hospitality and um kind of organizations where you have to go, people will be still coming in. Um, the second thing which is happening is that it's become very easy for people to switch jobs. Earlier, people may not switch jobs for logistic reasons. Now, with the logistics going away, so if today I have to, I'm staying in South Bangalore and I have to pick a job which is way out in North Bangalore. Earlier, I will say, no, this means 2 hour commute one way. I'm not going to pick up this job. But today, I may pick up that job. It says if I have to go just once a week or once in 2 weeks, it's okay. I can do that. In fact, that may happen across cities. We are finding that the people are moving back to smaller towns because they get better quality of life, and in the salary which they are earning, their quality of life can be much better in these places. And they will, once in a week, once in a month, come in to meet rest of the team, but then they will go back home. So we will see interesting dynamics playing out over next few years.
Right, right. And I really did love how you brought in the comparison of how it was pre-COVID and how it is now post-COVID, where people are right now more and more flexible in the ways that they choose to work, and the organizations have adapted to that as well over time. This one thing that always fascinates me is this quote by Gary Vee, where he always tells, company culture is the backbone of every successful organizations. So, I just want to double down on what exactly you told. So, how true is this, when it comes to the organizations and the startups that you work with? Is company culture really playing such an important role in building, even in these small scale startups to the larger ones that you work with in right now?
So, culture is there by default. As soon as you have two people, there is a culture. As soon as you have three people, it's a culture. And it changes as you go from 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 to 30. I think what matters is everybody in the organization experiencing the same culture? Or are they experiencing the culture of that small microcosm of that part of the organization based on how my boss is responding, or based on how my peers are responding? Is that culture something I am doing deliberately, or is it something by default? So one of the things which we tell organizations is that there comes a time when you have to build a culture of the organization which is very deliberate.
Hmm.
And you cannot leave it by default, because then different kind of things start happening, and there is a lot of angst which gets built up. There is a sense of fairness which creeps in because they may see that one group is very flexible. You can work from home, you can come whatever time you want, whereas another guy is saying, no, you have to come at 9 o'clock and you cannot leave before 6 o'clock. One guy doesn't care what you come to office in. The second guy insists, you have to be dressed in formals. So then people start feeling, no, this is not right. So if you want people to have that sense of fairness, if you want external world, the customer to also experience the organization as an organization, then you have to make a deliberate attempt to build an organization culture. And that is critical. So it's not that culture is not there, it's there. But is it what you wanted?
Correct. Right. I completely agree with that. And building the right culture and building a deliberate culture is very much necessary in having it as a backbone of every organization. One of the things that fascinates me is your experience primarily with information technology and the amount of data and technology that you've worked with in your career. So, combining the power of technology and data with one of the softer parts, which is organizational culture. Do you think data plays a key role in determining organizational culture, data and technology?
The interesting thing is that if you had asked me that question 5 years back, I would have said, no, you cannot. There are certain things which you don't go by data. But I will not make that statement today, because what data has done today is not just quantitative data, but what we call qualitative quantitative data. So it's able to look at qualitative data and is able to quantify, and thus is able to uh, tell an organization, this is how your employees are experiencing the culture. This is how your customers are experiencing your culture. So I believe that it plays an important role today, and it will continue to play more and more role today. I mean, I'll give you an example that when we were setting up the BPO, we were obviously interviewing a lot of people, and there came a time where I didn't have to see somebody's resume. I could talk to the person for 10 minutes and kind of get a good sense of which organization he's working in currently, just by the way that guy tells about what he's working on or what is he doing. So organization culture makes that kind of a difference to people. So if you really look at it, behind that was a quantitative aspect of it, right? Because there was a pattern which was there. Now I saw that pattern. Now the technology was not available at that time to see that pattern as explicitly as it is today, or was not there at the cost point which was there. But today, let us say if I had that conversation transcripted and I run it through some of the systems, it will actually tell me what is it the culture of that organization is. It may be able to even identify where this guy is actually working.
Right, right. And that it always fascinates me uh, with the fact that you told how technology has changed and advanced, literally in the last few years, and how important of a role it is playing. There is one question that we ask all of our guests here, which is, what does it take to become an employer of choice? What does it take to become an employer of the choice of the people? And what I always heard is that every single person has a different opinion. So, what, according to Rajiv Kuchhal, is the advice to become an employer of choice of the people?
I think what we found was that it's very, very critically be aware of the culture of the society, the socioeconomic background from which your people are coming, and what people in those socioeconomic background value the most, and align a lot of your things around that. I think one of the biggest reasons Infosys became such a dream company during 90s was because its culture resonated so well with the Indian middle class. And it didn't happen at that time, I will say, but it was not deliberate. It just happened because founders came from the middle class. But I think once they realized that that's what it was, a lot of things went around in then cultivating that culture. So when we started Progeon, we were very clear that we need to be aware of the fact that there is a larger socioeconomic uh, background from which people are coming. And we need to have things which align with that or resonate with them. And that at times makes it very, very easy for a person to get aligned to. So, one of the social enterprise I'm involved with is a rural BPO. And we always say there is either no attrition or there is very high attrition. Because nobody goes by logic, which I and you may think. They all go by, is it a good place or not a good place? So what does it mean for you to be a good place? You have to be aware of what the society values.
Right, right. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on our show, Mr. Rajiv. Are there any final words that you want to let our audience out with? Anything in particular you want to let them know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole organization culture as a term is grossly used and abused. I still don't see many organizations doing or making a deliberate effort in saying this is what the culture should be. And one of the things I want to say is that the top management has a very important role to play. The way they behave becomes the culture of the organization. And if they are not able to experience, or they're getting frustrated because the organization is not responding the way they think it should respond, they should probably use some of the new tools and technologies available to understand what employees are saying and then take corrective action.
Right. Fantastic. It's been an absolute delight to have you on our show, Mr. Rajiv. I hope you have a great day ahead. And hey, thank you everyone for listening in. If you listened until the end, make sure you leave a like and comment on what exactly was your takeaway from this. And we will see you again next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.